Thank you. Bigger, explosive orgasms. Tricks, tips, harder erections, last longer. Do you feel like you're standing in line at the grocery store yet? In today's results-oriented society, we have dumbed down sex to frequency, function, and performance. We're taught not to talk about it, and yet the oversaturation of sex in advertising, media, and culture commodifies it like humanity's biggest daddy pimp. When we reduce our sexuality to a mere act, instead of the living, breathing organism that our sexuality is, we wind up reducing our eroticism. So what exactly is eroticism? Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask a biologist or a sociologist, they'll have a very scientific evolutionary explanation. The current widespread cultural perception of it connotes obscenity, BDSM, and kink. Most sexologists actually refer to it as the interplay between our desires and arousal with the challenges of living and loving. Indeed, eroticism is a vast continuum of every human experience that has ever been had, every emotion that's ever been had, and every experience and emotion that will be had. So, what is erotic intelligence? From the broad perspective, which is for another talk another time, it's the ability to hold simultaneous truths. I can be hot and still desire something I already have. I can be a mother who loses a child and mourn for that child the rest of my life in sorrow, but yet still look toward the future for hope. I can be pro-Black Lives Matter and pro-police. But back to the fun stuff. The ingredients of erotic intelligence. Accurate information, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and body attunement. So we all know in the age of fake news sites, accurate information is very hard to come by. Combine that with the conformity of society telling us how we should be, who we should love, and how we should behave, with belief systems that are hundreds of years old and prescriptions from culture saying this is what constitutes normal. People in my business deal with normal anxiety all the time. They come to me and they say, am I normal? My partner and I have sex 2 to 3 times a week. They say, I'm a woman and I can't have an orgasm from penetrative sex. I must not be normal. But the truth is, the only thing that's normal in human sexuality is variation. And we all know, well, hopefully you all know and will know after this, this is the true size and scope of the clitoris. It wasn't until I published this research in 2011 that we actually figured out that the clitoris is a lot more than just the little nubbin up under the hood. Social intelligence. It goes without saying, being able to relate to and converse with somebody from any walk of life requires active listening and observation. The great philosopher Ferdinand Fellman indeed says that eroticism is the desire for mutual understanding, mind reading, and getting along together. Why is it that we don't teach social intelligence in schools? We send our kids to school and think, oh, they're with other kids, they're being socialized. But we don't develop that social intelligence. We don't teach how to foster empathy, we don't teach how to foster compassion, and we don't really teach how to get along. Imagine what rape culture would be like if we taught social intelligence development and all the other problems in the world. Emotional intelligence. Okay, so this is a big one. What do you do when things don't work out your way? When you're disappointed, when you don't get the job that you wanted, when you don't get into the college you wanted, when you fart during sex, or queef, because that happens. Sex is messy. Accidents happen literally. What do you do when it happens? Do you use humor and brush it off? And just as importantly, when you're the partner of somebody who experiences an embarrassing moment, do you exercise compassion and help them get over it? Are you a Judger McJudgerson, or are you a nurturer? So before I move on to self-awareness, a big thing that I wish everyone was empowered with, a big piece of information, is the work of Dr. Helen Fisher. She's kind of like my Beyonce idol of romance and the brain and love. But her work has shown that when we first meet somebody and we like them and we're romantically driven by them, our prefrontal cortex gets stimulated with natural amphetamines. We stay up all night, we can't stop thinking about them, we're literally mad. They're everything, we're obsessed with them. But what happens is our brain desensitizes. And the average time this takes is anywhere between 18 months and 3 years if you're lucky. And then what happens is these natural amphetamines go to a different section of the brain and we get natural opioids in our brains. So essentially we go from, I'm crazy to I'm content and happy. The implications of this are fierce because if we all had this knowledge, we might not decide to move halfway across the country after we fall in love a month in. We might not decide to have that child after we've known somebody for 2 or 3 months. People make huge, huge life choices because we're drugged out on natural brain chemicals. Imagine if in sex ed today, we not only had social and emotional intelligence development, but we were also empowered with this information of how our brains work when we're in love. Self-awareness. I want everyone here to picture the sky. What do you see? An image of clouds? Is it a fixed image, or do you see the clouds constantly moving and changing in rotation? The truth is, none of us are the same. The cosmos, to the blood in our veins, is swirling. So if we think of ourselves and our partners as fixed landscapes, how do we actually grow with them? We're not the same. I might wake up tomorrow and be in a really awful mood and want to be locked in and eat ice cream all day. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about more fun stuff. So sexologists have gone around. Jack Moran was the first one who started it, and then since a lot of us have gone around and asked thousands of people, tell me your peak sexual experiences and your peak fantasies. When you ask people about their peak sexual experiences, top 1 or 2, you hear amazing stories. Oh, we did it in public, we did it in our parents' bed, in the car, all sorts of stories. And then fantasies, those are usually the ones that you, unless they're answering anonymously, you don't get the real story, because what's in fantasy is not what we can always do in real life. So what you find when you gather all this data is that there are 4 central themes to our erotic minds. Longing and anticipation. I had the best experience because I was waiting for my lover to get back from out of town. We hadn't seen each other in so long. Searching for power. This could be you're an employee and something happens and you get together with your boss, or the boss could be upset he's not such a nice person to people all day and he needs to go have a dominatrix, help him deal with his power issues. Violating prohibitions, my absolute favorite, breaking the rules, the forbidden fruit, being naughty, and overcoming ambivalence. When you just can't stand somebody and they get under your skin and they drive you crazy, but something happens and you have this explosive, amazing experience. It kind of explains that one. So what we realize from studying this data is that we can actually find our core erotic themes. And when we find our core erotic themes, we suddenly have this beautiful insight to our inner subconscious. We can work through childhood emotions, which is what we do in sex therapy, but we can also use these themes to become more self-aware. We have a higher sense of self-awareness. It's not just, this is a category I like watching on porn when I'm trying to get off before I get out the door to go to work. If you think about what of those 4 central themes really titillate you, not just the category, but what of those 4 themes. And then you can work back, well, why do I have the need to search for power? Why do I love longing and anticipating so much? So you can actually gain a better, higher sense of self-awareness and work through problems, and you can also play with it, which is really fun. I believe it was Gloria Steinem who said something along the lines of, fashion is what outside forces tell you to wear. Style is what you innately have. Our erotic intelligence is what we innately have. The toys, tips, and tricks, and lingerie, those are just gaudy accoutrements without erotic intelligence, without our innate sense of style. Everybody always asks me, what's the future of human relationships? We've overcome the taboos of divorce. We've overcome the taboos of gay marriage and lesbian marriage and trans. We've overcome interracial marriage. The last final frontier in terms of human monogamy is overcoming this whole infidelity, monogamy issue that everyone faces. So young people are always saying, what do you think of monogamy? How do we do this? Where's the future going? I don't know. I don't have the answers. People say, let's rewrite the rules of monogamy. But the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all box for everybody. It's our responsibility to figure out what works best for us. And in order to navigate that seamlessly, we can cultivate our erotic intelligence.